Good morning, all. Welcome to the free OpManager training series. Hope you have no hassle in hearing this and viewing the presentation as well. If you've got any challenges, please do let us know through the webinar chat panel. Once we receive a couple of confirmations on this presentation view and audio, we would move further. All right, thank you so much. I've now received a couple of confirmations that you can see and view this presentation. Let me introduce about myself. I'm Sharath, product expert associated with ManageEngine's ITOM suite of products for the last 5 years. Hope for the next 45 minutes of time, I would try my best to add some value to the time spent. As all you know, this is a 4-part training series. So the first week of the training I've started last week, 21st of Jan, where we covered up on discovery and classification. So this week, we would completely focus on how to monitor the server performance metrics, followed by 4th February on the next week, same time, we would have network performance metrics and maps. On the last presentation of this webinar series is on 11th of February, fault management and IT automation. So for the benefit of all the audience throughout the globe, we have got this webinar broadcasted at 6 a.m. GMT and 11 a.m. EST as well. If any of your colleagues have missed to join today's presentation or the last presentation of discovery and classification, you can very well have a look at the recorded version of the webinar at the link given below. You can also find those recorded versions in the YouTube page at OpManager Tech Videos. Now, I wanted to let you know we do have a separate team of panelists who is ready to answer all your questions throughout the course of this webinar. During the webinar, if you've got any questions related to the topic which we are discussing on, please do write that question in the chat panel. Our panelist would answer you right then and there. So now we'll directly deep dive into monitoring the server performance with ManageEngine's OpManager. So let's have a quick look of the agenda of today's webinar. We'll talk about how availability is being monitored, how the server performance metrics are monitored in OpManager. We'll also talk few things about virtual environment like Hyper-V, Xen, Citrix, VMware, and also we would talk on Nutanix server performance metrics. Then we would talk about event log monitoring on how do you reduce your service downtime with the help of event logs, and we would talk script monitoring as well. Storage performance monitor also comes up the last for today's presentation. Let's begin with performance metrics of what do we have in OpManager. Almost we've got 2000 plus metrics available to monitor any type of performance metrics for any of the devices which you have monitored, like servers, virtual devices, network devices across multiple protocols like SNMP, CLI, VMware API, and also through WMI. All these kind of performance metrics, the critical ones, would be automatically assigned to those devices immediately after the discovery based on the type of the device with the help of the device templates. Also, a new performance monitor is very easy to add right here in this product. In case if you do not find any of these monitors for your vendor or for that particular model is not available in the list of these 2000 metrics, you can just very well add them new. And you can just associate them to the multiple devices of the same type at once in just one go. You can do that right here in the product itself. Now, let's talk on availability monitoring. So availability being the heartbeat of the device. To check on the health of the device is quite very important and a basic parameter to monitor on any device. We monitor the health status of the device using the protocol ICMP. The basic ping responses is what we look for. In case if your device is available on any of the demilitarized zone where ping is being disabled, we do also check the availability of the device with the help of TCP. And this can be monitored at a regular interval. You can just poll the device from OpManager at a regular period of time, say every 5 minutes, every 1 minute, every 10 minutes, and get them polled and get the results. And packet loss and the response time would also be captured, and you can set thresholds and make sure you get the alerts triggered if that threshold is being violated. You can also set uplink dependencies on these devices. Say, for example, you've got a switch that's, say, a 32 port switch. You've got 32 servers connected to that switch. So in case if all these devices are monitored in OpManager for its health and performance, once if the switch goes down, you would receive 33 alerts saying that all the devices are down. Rather, to avoid those kind of false alerts, you set the parent device as your switch for all these 32 servers. So then the 32 servers would be tagged as dependent device being down and not the real down. So it would be very, very helpful for you to make sure you get the perfect details. Let me just jump back to the product and show you how the availability dials look like. So once the device has been discovered successfully, as you all know, the summary screen of this device will give you a couple of details, and here is your availability timeline right on the right of the device. So availability timeline for today, and here comes the availability chart, the availability, packet loss and response time. So as we spoke, to set the thresholds of any particular metric like packet loss or response time, just click on configure thresholds, and here you can just go ahead and set the threshold of that particular device. So when it gets violated, you would be able to get an alert triggered. And in case if you wish to set that for multiple devices of packet loss and response time, you can very well do that from quick configuration wizard. There you would be finding threshold settings, get into the availability monitors, and you've got the response time. Set some threshold, say if the response time, or you wanted to set it for a packet loss. So if the packet loss seems like if it's more than 20% of the loss, or like say if 25% of the loss, and if it's say like 30% of the packet has been lost by any chance, you want that to be marked as critical. So you set thresholds. And as you know, rearm criteria is something when if the packet loss seems to be a normal for like say 10%, just for an example, you want that alert to be clear. Once you move on to the next, you can just set it for multiple devices at once. Select multiple devices, set it at once, and save them. So this is how you can go ahead and set thresholds for multiple devices. Likewise, you can set device dependencies as we spoke. You set the parent device as that particular switch or that particular router, and then set to what are all those 32 servers which we were talking about. If you've got some 32 devices, you know them by name or the IP address, select all those 32 servers, set that as a parent device with that router, so then your device has been now dependent on that particular switch which we were discussing about. I also wanted to add some value right here with a tip. In case if the device seems to be down by any chance and you are an administrator, one of the administrators, and you wanted to mark some notes for the outage happened, and you wanted to just make sure the other admins who would log in at a different time or a different schedule wanted to know what has happened when the device was down, you can very well go and add notes for a better understanding of another administrator. To add notes on any of those, you can just get into the availability timeline of the device, and here you get down statistics. So you have an option to click on edit and then provide the reason. Say it could have been for an hardware maintenance. It could have been for an hardware maintenance, and you can just save them. So any other administrator who would log in would be able to find that the reason for this particular time period, 27 Jan to 28 Jan, is because of the hardware maintenance. So the next one we're talking about is availability representations. If any of you have joined the webinar today, would have been an evaluator or who is a prospect or a customer who is just looking on this product for a long time, I just wanted to explain how this availability is being represented in multiple places on the color codes. As all you know, it's quite simple that green, it denotes up, down is denoted as red, and there is another code which is gray in color which says on maintenance. And on maintenance is nothing but any of your scheduled downtime for that particular device. In case you have a server and you want to have a scheduled downtime on every Friday for like 30 minutes of time, you can just mark those, and those time period would be tagged in this gray color. And next is on dependent unavailable. So the switch which we were talking about on 32 servers for parent device. So those 32 servers, if it goes down, or the parent device, the switch goes down, it would be tagged as dependent unavailable, and that's the reason we were not able to reach the device. Next is on hold, which is on pink in color, which is nothing but in case of an emergency, you wanted to manually stop the polling of the device by unmanaging the device, you would be marked with pink color at that time period. And the blue one is said to be not monitored, where that particular device is not even being added to the product for monitoring, would be tagged in blue color. So all these representations is what you would be finding right here. You have got multiple colors, somewhere it's on up, somewhere down, somewhere not monitored. So all this is just you would be finding in the down statistics. So the next I would like to talk about is if you've got an organization with multiple servers and network devices, how and what should an organization monitor to know how its performance statistics are. So let's say you might have a couple of servers purchased at the beginning, and all these servers would have been highly resourced at the beginning, probably later point of time after 6 months or 2 years. Obviously the load on that device becomes high, and that particular device would have been literally behaving slow. So how you would be identifying, or what are the things you've got to identify to understand the device response flow in terms of performance metrics? So we'll talk about the server. Make sure you monitor the CPU, RAM, and the disk usage of all these devices. Whether that slowness is because of the CPU is being notched to 100%, or is that because of some reason. So you monitor those things at first. Next, to understand the top processes. What are the top 10 processes or top 5 processes which eats up so much of resources, which is spiking up your CPU? Understand on those processes. Work with your trend analysis kind of reports at a regular period of time to understand, or forecast kind of reports, which would tell you whether in later point of time, whether this resources which you're using right now is sufficient, or has that been overutilized, or has that been really underutilized. So you plan your resources accordingly, and you have to work with your trend analysis. Also check on your health reports very often to understand the status of the devices completely. So then if you wanted to replay something, you want to change or work anything, you can just very well have a look at that and make sure you do it. So if in case a device responds slow, with the help of OpManager, you've got all these things already available which you can start monitoring. So the next type of monitoring we are talking about is Windows services and service monitoring. When I talk about Windows service monitoring, any services which runs at the background in, like, say, services.msc, and that particular services can be monitored with this availability of that particular services. And in case if those Windows services goes down by any chance, if that seems to be a critical service and it goes down, you can automatically restart the service or restart the entire server with the help of your WMI credential. So let's say in any of the device under monitors, you've got all kind of monitors available. We're now talking about Windows service monitors. So I've just got a couple of monitors being added and monitored. In case if you wanted to add new, you can just click on add monitor, or already available monitors can be associated. When you click on add monitor, the current processes, the services which is there would be like listed. You can just start adding them and will monitor them. So in case if it goes down by any chance, now it seems to be up. In case if it goes down, you can select either you want to restart the service or you want to restart the entire server itself. So it helps you to make sure those services comes up again, and your service would definitely be up all time, as it seems to be a critical one. So the next monitoring we are talking about is service monitors. Service monitors are nothing but your TCP port monitoring. So in case you've got any of your TCP ports which has to be monitored, it seems to be HTTP, HTTPS, any of those important ports you wanted to monitor, you can just go ahead and then very well add the name of the service, port number, and then you can just save them. It automatically adds in right here and starts monitoring at a regular period of time as well. The next set of monitors we are looking for is process monitors. So processes are also quite important to be monitored, because that would let you know what is the CPU memory being used in that process. So you can monitor the current active running processes on any machine, and it processes CPU, memory, and status of that process can also be monitored, like whether the process goes down or is that up and running fine. You can just monitor them. You can get your thresholds being set for those critical kind of processes, and even you can kill those processes if it seems to be an unwanted one. Kill them directly from the tool itself. It is not required that you've got to get into that server itself, RDPing to the server. You can just directly do that from the tool. Let me show you how those can be done. On the monitors, you've got process monitors, which will tell you about the status of those processes, the CPU being used by that particular process, the memory usage in bytes, and how many instances are running. You can just go ahead and then very well, as said, associate them. So here for any device, you've got something called active processes, which means the current processes which runs on that particular machine would be listed under active processes. You can just fetch them as well. And as discussed, in case if you wanted to kill any of those processes, on the summary page, you've got CPU and memory utilization. You can understand what are the top 10 processes being utilized, or what are the top 10 processes which the memory is being utilized. Those can be fetched, and you can kill the process directly from here in this process diagnostics as well. Next is about files and folder monitors. So files and folders are something which needs to be monitored in case you've got MS SQL Server where it has so much of log files which needs to be monitored. You can definitely monitor those things with the help of OpManager to understand the existence of the files or folders. If it seems to be an important file, let's say it's an XML file, or it seems to be a certificate file, you wanted to make sure that file sits in the same path for a very long time. Understand the existence, size, count, and age of the file, how long that particular file is being sitting at the same path. Get those details. Also configure the thresholds to make sure if that file is exceeding a certain limit of size, a certain limit of count, you can just get them alerted. And another important point is, in case if you've got, say for example, you've got an MS SQL server where you've got monitoring the log folder, and in that particular log file you have a particular string. Let's say that seems to be a wrapper file or any file which is using for a startup of any product. So if there is a string comes as error, or it seems to be stop, or any other word or a string called exception, say for example, if you monitor that particular extent string, you can even use an agent for that particular file string monitoring, and this agent would go ahead and then check on that particular file. It would just keep reading on the appended content and then would check exactly whether that particular string is available. If yes, it would just let you know this particular string is available. Say even for example, if you wanted to monitor any of those files like this, say file monitoring, this would let you know about, you can just provide the path of the file, let OpManager know how often do you want to pull that device, and this tells you about the existence of the file and get alerted if it does not exist, size of the file, setting the thresholds right here, the age of the file. If it seems to be modified, get an alert on it. And you have file contains an exclusive option which an agent is being used for this, a string like exception on this particular log file. You can just even monitor in case you want to match the case and monitor. You can very well do it. Click on agents and then you can download the agent, get them installed directly on that particular machine. You can start monitoring the files. The same way you have your folder monitoring available. Get into any of these kind of folders you wanted to monitor, and it would tell you about whether you want to add your subfolders as well. It would just give you a complete picture on how that particular folder is behaving at a regular period of time. The next service or the performance metric we are talking for the servers is URL monitoring. When I talk about URL monitoring, any URL, say you've got a banking sector or you've got any organization, you would just definitely would like to monitor the URL of your website, or possibly the URL where your employees would log in at the morning. So those URLs would never go down because that's so business critical. So those kind of URLs can be monitored, that would help you to get your availability and the response time. In case if the response time is too high, then you've got to work with your application guy and make sure that URL seems to be responding back soon. And here comes again the match content would be useful in case you want to do exactly match a string from the URL and get them notified if that string is not available. Say I would just say opmanager.com is a website you wanted to monitor, for example. The critical or the keyword it seems to be network in that it's network monitoring solution. So if the word or the content named as network is not available, then you want them to be notified. Likewise, you would have your own URLs. You can just have your own content, match them exactly, and then get them notified if that is not available. And even if it's behind the proxy, we've got an exclusive setting for your proxy servers. You can just set your proxy, and then you can just very well monitor them behind proxies as well. Setting up the URL monitors is also quite very simple. As you can see, this will tell you about the availability, the status, and response times. Adding a monitor would just help you with the match content, just provide the time, and in case if you've got any of your authorization for that particular URL to be provided, you can very well give them and save it for its monitoring. I would like to show where you have to configure your proxy settings. Into the settings, and you've got a dedicated one called proxy server settings. And you can just enable the proxy server settings, provide the required details, and save them so you get your proxy being saved as well right here. So the next one we are talking about is on a different type of parameter for a Windows server. Let's now take with an example and just explain. Let's say we've got a database, like a database which runs with the service accounts, where a couple of applications are being relied on that particular database. At one particular point of time, let's say a user complains that the application is crashed or it's not usable at all. It seems to be it's completely crashed. What would you do as a server administrator at that point when you would have received tickets from the users, or you would have received calls from the users, and there comes your troubleshooting cycle where you've got to check one by one. You've got a big list of what has to be done if the application seems to be dead, because this would definitely affect your business, and this would definitely affect the downtime of the entire applications as well. Where there comes your event log monitoring, which can instantly notify if any of the service account goes down. So you monitor the entire accounts, the security events which happens on that particular server. So the event log monitoring would instantly notify from OpManager, alert you either through any method, like SMS, email, that the service account goes down. So in case if any of your user calls in and states that the application is crashed, instantly you would know that the application is crashed because of the service account is down. So you can just let them know. That would be fixed in a couple of minutes. So you reduce the complete downtime of the entire process. You reduce the troubleshooting cycle, which helps you better in processing these kind of requests. When I talk about event log rules with OpManager, it monitors the program security and system events which happens in Windows service. And you can just gather the event IDs or categories from the native tool event viewer, and you can create a rule in the OpManager to parse those events. You can monitor your custom events as well. And this kind of severity which you wanted to set for the events, it's absolutely customizable. You can do it. So to create a event log monitoring, you've got event log monitors. You can just go ahead and then associate a monitor, or to create one, you can just get into settings, event log rules, and then you can just add one. There are a couple of event log monitors which we find seems to be a critical ones are available by default. You can add one in case you wanted to identify what is the event ID, what is the category or source. As we discussed, the event viewer, a native tool from Microsoft, would definitely help you. You can just get to the Windows logs. You wanted to look for any of the security events. All the security events can be fetched with the help of the event viewer, and those details like event ID, the category, and a couple of other informations can be fetched directly from here. So let me just wait for some time when the event viewer is just pulling up the event details, and you can just go ahead and then very well check all these events right here. So you've got audit success, a couple of audit failures possibly. So you wanted to monitor them. So you have the event ID available right here, the user, the level, and you would just also find a couple of other informations like category. So all these information is what you would have to provide right here: the event ID, the category, the user, and the source. And it's an information in case, as we spoke, you can just select them, and you can very well set the severity on how it has to be for your environment. Set them right here and get them as alerted. There would have been a couple of scenarios where you want to ignore that particular event, where OpManager allows you to ignore those events as well. You do not want that event to be raised with an alert. You can just very well go ahead and then set that. Custom event logs can also be created apart from the ones which is available. You can add a custom rules for events right from this particular place. The next we'll talk now is on script templates. Script templates are something where you would like to use it when you do not have a specific metric which you wanted to monitor is not available in OpManager in terms of SNMP, CLI, or WMI protocol. Say for example, if it's CPU, definitely we have it as in like WMI and SNMP, you can very well go ahead and monitor. In case of disk or like memory, all these are available by default. Say in case you wanted to monitor the expiry date of any of the SSL certificates which sits on your servers, that can never be monitored with help of SNMP. So for those kind of requirements, you can go ahead and then use the script templates. You can write your own script in any of the languages like Python, Shell, Perl, VB, and those scripts can be directly implemented or imported right within the tool, and the devices can be executed those scripts and get you results. You can just execute those kind of reports either in local machines or in remote machines as well. Output format of these scripts has to be in a predefined model, like it has to give you the instance and then its respective value, and another next instance and the next value. This is how your output format has to be. So this is what one of the basic requirements we have. Once this is ready, then you can just make sure you write the script accordingly, and then you would get your results right then. So script templates is just right available here. You can add, or even you can import your scripts from anywhere. You can just write your own scripts, and if you want to execute on the local server or on the remote monitored machine, execute them, set the thresholds for them, and then save that. You would get the results for your script templates. So these are a couple of performance metrics we have got for the servers, and the next thing we are moving on is on virtual device monitoring and Nutanix server performance metrics we have got in OpManager. So as we have already spoke on the last webinar, the Nutanix is something which we've added very recently with OpManager. So we have brought in new kind of performance metrics for those Nutanix as well. So let's talk on the virtualization part now. For VMware, Zen, Hyper-V, we have got a couple of performance metrics like CPU ready time, wait time, balloon memory, disk and data stores can also be monitored. So you've got a dedicated tab available for virtualization. When you get into the vCenter, you just very well have a look at the monitors available. There are a couple of monitors by default available which can be monitored with the help of VMware API. So you have the performance metrics which you can just check with the help of VMware API. You have multiple performance metrics of those kinds. You can just monitor them. And for the virtual devices like vCenter or Hyper-V, you have hardware metrics which can also be monitored, like your sensors, power, temperature, and voltage, which we completely rely on the VMware API. Whatever the results we fetch it from the VMware API, we get them right here. And we also support that based only on Dell and HP vendors as of now. When I talk about VMware events, yes, the events like any inventory changes, like the VM being migrated from one host to another, or the host connections, a new host has been connected, or any new VMs has been powered on, or it seems to be powered off, those kind of events can also be captured. So when we get into vCenter, those kind of VMware events can be very well found. You can just get into the VMware events from options. By default, we have got about 25 VMware events available. All these VMware events would definitely be monitored. In case if any of your new VMware events has to be monitored, you can just add new, fetch the new VMware events, and then you can select them and save it for new events. So any of those is happening on your virtual environment in your vCenter, those would be alerted and you would be finding it under the alarms. You do have separate alarms for that, like events, and then those would be captured right here under the events. All these can also be captured. So the next is about reports. We do have exclusive reports for your virtualization, like you want to understand how the resources have been utilized, or you want to understand the clusters latency, clusters inventory. All those can also be captured. You do also have a sprawl dashboard, which would completely give you a picture on how that really works. When I talk about reports, we have got separate reports on virtual servers. You can understand memory being over allocated or being under allocated. Likewise for CPU and a couple of data store mapping as well. Likewise, Nutanix also has an exclusive reports like latency and cluster, or a couple of other informations like bandwidth, free space, IOPS, and everything. When I talk on the sprawl dashboard, which I was talking about, this helps you to understand on over allocated and under allocated resources right from here itself. This would give you a picture on how that is being. When I say Nutanix, this is how your Nutanix summary page would look like. Once the cluster has been successfully added, you get to understand the number of the hosts we have, the number of virtual machines listed under them, the storage containers, the disks, everything would be captured right here on all the respective monitors would automatically be added and then capture for monitoring as well. So these are a couple of clusters monitoring on the Nutanix. We have like storage, we want to understand the CPU, the cache of the physical memory, all these can be captured. For as a normal device, you can also go ahead and set the thresholds for these kind of devices, get the graphs out of it. You can just get a clear picture on how this has been performed. You get the graphical view of that particular metric, or you can even want to get a table view on each and every hold value. You want to understand the data points. You can even very well get them right from here. So the next is all about storage performance metrics. How do you monitor the storage devices and what are the metrics we monitor? The features we have got for the storage devices, we monitor the management of RAID, tape library, and storage forecast is also available. You get to monitor the FC switches in the storage department. And we've got n number of devices being supported by multiple vendors right now. So you might find there are a couple of ones which is listed on the screen, but apart from these, most common vendors for the storage is being supported. Very often we try our best to add the vendors, new vendors, and support them in the product as well. When I talk about the reports, absolutely storage do also have an exclusive report. Let me just show you how you've got the storage part available right here. So getting into a storage is also an exclusive tab from the servers. You get to understand the disks available, the LUN, the complete storage information. And you also have an opportunity to see all the monitors of the storage system. There are a couple of monitors by default available. You can just add them as per your choice. And you get to understand the reports for the storage as well. How the growth, you wanted to check on the trend of the growth or the summary, everything can definitely be achieved right from the exclusive tab. So this is how you've got your servers performance metrics being monitored. When you click on servers, this is again an exclusive tab, which you can just find it of all servers. We have now separated as physical servers and virtual part into different two tabs. You can just get to see the physical ones, and you've got all these ones separated. So you can just get directly to that, have a look of all these devices and get them sorted and have a look at the performance metrics. So almost we have now come to the end of the presentation to see how are or what are the performance metrics being monitored for those server category. So here is a link where we just display about the supported devices of the storage models. You can just very well have a look at these link. And if you want any of the new link or new devices to be supported, please do let us know, and then we will definitely be able to help you getting that as well. So next training is on 4th of February, where we would like to talk about the network devices and its performance metrics, where we will talk about the interface monitoring on how the interface is monitored for bandwidth and grouping those interfaces. Get the custom SNMP monitors added. We'll talk about IP SLA and a couple of custom maps like Google Maps, business groups, and a couple of other things. So I would be waiting for you over the next week to keep a track of this webinar. And now we will just jump into the next part, is about question discussion, where we have got one of our panelists available right here. We would now discuss on the important questions which you have received throughout this session, where I would like to introduce Krishna from OpManager, who as a panelist would now discuss on the questions.
Hello everyone, this is Renga from the OpManager team. I hope Shaks would have given you a complete insight of monitoring the server performance. So we did receive a few interesting questions when the training was going on. So let us discuss these important questions and help you out. So the first question is, does OpManager supports Nutanix? Yes, we have recently brought in the support for monitoring Nutanix devices. So in case if you're in an older version of OpManager, the support is included from the version 12.4098, where we monitor the Nutanix using Prism API. So with the help of Prism API framework, OpManager monitors each and every parameters of the Nutanix device. So in case if you are running on an older build, please do contact the support so that we can give you the steps to upgrade to version 12.4098 and you can avail this feature. So let us move to the next question. Can OpManager monitor the device's availability based on DNS name instead of IP address? Yes, this is possible. All we need to do is just change a setting on OpManager, which would bring in this feature. So let me take you to the UI and let me show you on where to change this and have this enabled. So say, for example, if you wanted to change it for all the devices which you have added on OpManager, then globally, you can do it by navigating to settings, monitoring, choose the monitor settings, wherein you have an option called pole using, so where you can choose IP address or DNS based on your requirement and choose save. However, if you wanted to change it only for specific devices, then you can navigate to the appropriate device summary page. Let me take you to a page. So from the device summary page, you can click on edit, where you have an option called pole using IP address or DNS. You can select according to your requirement and choose save, and that would be changed for this particular device alone. So let us get back to the questions. Does OpManager have dynamic threshold? Currently, we do not have this option. However, we are working on combining with artificial intelligence to give an adaptive threshold, which is in the development stage. However, if you would like to give us some ideas or your feedback on how you want this to be implemented on OpManager, your feedbacks are certainly welcome. We have given a link which is posted on the chat panel, wherein we have this feature on our roadmap. You can just reply back with your feedbacks or with your ideas so that we can implement the same on OpManager and we can bring it bring this functionality on the product. Let's move to the next one. How to create separate monitors for each instance while creating custom SNMP monitor. So yes, again, this option is possible. Let me take you to the UI and let me explain you step by step so that you can get to know on how to do this. So kindly navigate to the appropriate device summary page, for which you need to create a custom SNMP monitor. And once you are on the summary page, you can navigate to monitors, and then you can choose, I'm sorry, Let me navigate to a device where SNMP is configured. Okay, so you can navigate to monitors page, wherein you can choose the option add SNMP monitor from the actions. There, say for example, I need to monitor the disk space of a particular drive alone. Say I have 4 partitions, C, D, E, and F, and I don't want to monitor the disk space for all the 4 partitions, and I need to monitor only for a specific partition. So in this case, I would require to create a certain instance or the instance of the C drive alone. So in this case, you can go to choose OID. So normally we use host resources MIP file to monitor the disk usage. So from there, you can select the appropriate OID. Here we have an option called test OID as well as choose OID, so that you can first test whether the device is responding to this particular OID. You can have a check here, and in case if the device is responding, then you can go ahead and create the custom SNMP monitor. So once you have selected the appropriate OID, you can go ahead and query the device. And once we are able to fetch all the details, by default, we would be selecting all the instances. However, the query is related to specific instance alone. So in this case, you can choose select instance, choose the appropriate series index as well as the display name. So once this is selected, you can see the instance index as well as the display name, as well as the value which we normally get it from the OID. So from here, if I wanted to have a monitor only for the C drive or D drive or E drive, you can just select the appropriate instance and proceed with next. And this would give you the monitor details, wherein you can have the monitor name, the interval, that is the period of interval, the units, the delta value, the data type, however if you want. And if you want to enable a threshold for this monitor, yes, we have an option. So you can enable the threshold as well, and you can choose add monitor, which would automatically add this specific monitor for this specific instance alone. So let's get back to the questions. Can OpManager monitor mounted partitions in the device? Yes, we can monitor the mounted partitions. So we have a specific monitor, an inbuilt monitor just to monitor the mounted partitions. I will show you on how to activate the appropriate monitor on the UI. So again, get back to the appropriate device on which you need to monitor this particular parameter. So once you're on the device summary page, you can choose monitor, and then you can choose add performance monitor from the actions, wherein all the performance monitor which are there by default on OpManager would be fetched. Let's wait once all the monitors are fetched, and once you are able to see all the monitors, we have an option called mounted partition here. So we have almost 6 monitors, wherein if you wanted to monitor the free mounted partition space, yes, we have a dedicated monitor using the WMA credential. As well as if you wanted to monitor the usage of each mounted partitions, again, we have a separate monitor using the WMA credentials. And if you wanted to monitor the used mounted partition space, again, we have a monitor using WMA credentials. So depending upon your requirement, you can choose the appropriate monitor, and you can just add it onto the appropriate device and start monitoring the appropriate parameter. Let's move to the next one. Does OpManager support TLS 1.3 for URL monitoring? No, at present we do not support TLS 1.3. However, we do support TLS 1.1 and TLS 1.2. So the next question will be, will OpManager notify me if the CPU utilization of the OpManager server is above 90%? Yes, we have an option called self-monitoring, wherein if the CPU utilization of the server on which the OpManager application is installed, if it crosses above 90%, an alert would be raised within OpManager. Let me show you that on UI. So from the settings, you can navigate to general settings, wherein under general settings, you have an option called self-monitoring. There we have an option to monitor the CPU, the monitor the free disk space, and in case if you need an alert if the disk free space is below a certain threshold, you can activate an option wherein you can ask the OpManager application to notify you through email or through notification. So here you can configure your requirement, and if the threshold is breached, yes, automatically an email would be sent or a notification would be sent depending upon which criteria you are choosing here. Let's get back to the questions. How to apply a threshold for a monitor to multiple devices on bulk? That's a classic question. So say, for example, you have almost 200 devices in the category of server, Windows 2008 operating system, and you wanted to change the threshold for a particular monitor or for a couple of monitors on a bulk basis. Yes, we have this option, which is very well possible using the appropriate device template. So let me take you to the UI and explain this query. So from the OpManager UI, you can navigate to the device template by navigating to settings, configuration, device template, and choose the appropriate server. So in case if that's a Windows 2012 R2, then we have an appropriate device template for that. So for each and every operating system or the device model, we have a different device template. So say for example, my server is Windows 2012 R2. I'll first get into the appropriate device template, wherein we have all the monitors which is associated here. So all you need to do is edit, click on edit thresholds, where it will give you an option to configure the threshold for all the monitors which is using this particular template. So all you need to do is configure the threshold for each and every monitor. And at the bottom, if you click on OK, these threshold value would be saved in the template. So once it is saved in the template, all you need to do is choose save and associate, so that all the thresholds would be applied to all the devices which are using this template, and the threshold settings would be applied globally to all the devices. Let's get back to the questions. Okay, so I believe we have reached the end of the question and answer session. And in case if you would like to watch few videos on OpManager, yes, we have our YouTube channel where we upload all our videos. You can visit youtube.com/OpManager Tech Videos. And in case if you wanted to have a few help related to various modules on OpManager, we have our help website, which would be help.opmanager.com. And in case if you would like to interact with us, then you can visit our forums, which would be forums.manageengine.com/opmanager. And in case if you would like to have any support, if you want a support assistance, yes, you can drop an email to opmanager-support@manageengine.com, or you can call the hotline numbers which is displayed on the screen, and you can get connected with one of our support technicians. And yes, we also offer certifications. So in case if you're interested for a certification in OpManager, wherein you can go through the certification and get certified officially, yes, we have that option. You can visit www.manageengine.com/training/certification-register.html, wherein you can get enrolled yourself and get certified as an OpManager professional. So thank you everyone for your patiently listening to this session. Hope this would have given you some insights about the server performance. So we would catch you up on the next session, which will be held next week. Until then, take care and bye-bye.